This news came out courtesy of Bungie.net of the passing of the torch here. The quick heads up on this is Pete Parsons is out as the head dude over at Bungie here. Now, you had an interesting response to this over on X. By the way, Pete, it's just business. So, fairly cryptic here.
I came up with that yesterday. It's just amazing that it got this many.
I'll allow you to kind of go into detail on that tweet.
The detail is for those few people who maybe heard me speak about different things over the years. I'm not a big fan of Pete Parsons as CEO, and I've said things in the past like the mistake that I made was helping to get Bungie out of Microsoft, but I didn't get Microsoft out of Bungie. And Pete Parsons is one of those people who is a career Microsoft guy, and he was career Microsoft business guy, and we sort of brought him along. And I think in hindsight, I think that some of the stuff that Pete brought with him was in the long run a mistake for Bungie. So there was a point way back when Pete first became studio manager. This is when we were wholly owned by Microsoft. This is like in 2002, 2003, probably 2003-ish, where there was a separate company. What the guy's names? You know who I'm talking about. In Texas, big Texas company, Gearbox.
Oh, yes. Okay.
They were assigned to do the Halo 1 port for PC. And we were working on Halo 2 at the time. Pete was new as the Microsoft executive studio manager of Bungie. He came to me and said, Microsoft has decided not to do a PC port. And this is like a year after, or 2 years or so after, we had Ed Fries and Alex Seropian come out on stage at Macworld saying, "Don't worry, everybody, Halo will be ported to the PC and the Mac. We promise that will happen." Because at the time, there were a lot of Mac fans that were really upset that Halo was going to be Xbox only. And so we wanted everybody to know, like, no, this will be on the PC. We promise it'll be on the PC. So when Pete came and told me that, I was like, that's completely unacceptable. I can't be part of a company that lies to its fans. And he goes, "Marty, it's just business." So that's burned into my head. And I still worked with Pete and was friends with Pete, and we did a lot of stuff together for many years after that. But I still remember that he could actually have those words come out of his mouth. It's just business. And I put my foot down and said, I can't be part of that. And eventually, I don't know what all the negotiations were, but eventually, of course, Halo did come out for the PC and the Mac, and, it was all sweetness and light and happiness. But what I saw, there was a 3-year period where Pete was not at Bungie when we were getting ourselves out of Bungie. And very few people know this, even though we've talked about it. Pete was, while we were trying to get out of Microsoft, Pete was the executive in charge of Bungie. But we were all still Bungie, we were all still Microsoft employees. And while we were negotiating our way to get out of Microsoft and getting very little traction on that, Pete told Microsoft that he was going to resign unless they truly upped their negotiations with us. And it came to a head at one point, which you can read about in the book. And we basically said, "This is good, Pete, go ahead, resign. We're going to go independent. We're going to allow you to go away." And this is, we didn't fire Pete. We allowed Pete Parsons to quit Microsoft, fall on his sword to show Microsoft how serious we were. And this is in 2006. Mm-hmm. So this is more than a year before Halo 3 was shipped. So we're making a very serious, play to say we are going to go independent. and we're even going to let your boy Pete Parsons, excuse me, resign. And so he did. And then we became independent without Pete Parsons. So the company that made Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST was a company without Pete Parsons. So you look at the credits on that, Pete's nowhere to be seen. I think we might have done a special thanks or something. But Pete also didn't work on Halo 1. He was the marketing director of Xbox Studios during Halo 1 period. So he came on a year after we shipped Halo 1, was studio manager for Halo 2, and then resigned, and then came back about halfway through Halo Reach development. And he came back as marketing director for Bungie. So the new independent Bungie rehired Pete as marketing director. He'd been gone for 3 years. And then he eventually became COO. So he was COO when I was fired. And then in 2016, I think he became CEO after Harold Ryan left. So it's just, I would say that, you know, I would disagree with many decisions that I think under the Pete Parsons regime were made, and they reflect, I think, the way Pete Parsons runs things and his pedigree as a Microsoft business guy. So if you read some of the reasons why people were laid off a few years ago at Bungie and then laid off again, and some of the other things that have happened, I would say Pete has not been, you know, a great leader of Bungie Studios. Now, people can argue with that because he was able to negotiate Sony purchasing Bungie for $3.7 billion, which is quite a feat. And frankly, they fired me and took my stock, but I fought them and I got my stock. So when Sony bought Bungie, I'm really glad that I had my Bungie founders stock.
Yeah. Yeah, that's outstanding for you.
Yeah.
Well,
So that worked out for me. So like on one hand, I should probably be thankful that, you know, Pete made some of the decisions he made, but I think looking at how Bungie has been run, the people who were the original creatives at Bungie that have left and got, in my opinion, pushed out over the years, many super creative, wonderful people I worked with for many years, were no longer there. And I think all you have to do is kind of look at where Bungie is right now and take a hard look at where Bungie is and what sort of products they're making and how they're being responded to by the fans. And it's not a big surprise. We saw Sony come in and say, we're taking over, we're absorbing more of Bungie, we're taking over many things at Bungie. That was from a couple of weeks ago. And so it was just a matter of time, in my opinion, for the quote-unquote CEO of Bungie in a wholly owned subsidiary of Sony to basically not really have any a power. And so it was just a matter of time for him to step down.
So we saw that note, the passing of the torch note over on the Bungie website. Do you think that was him stepping down, or was this more of a being forced out type of thing?
You know, I've been at the top levels of many big companies, and nobody ever gets fired. Nobody, except me. And I got fired because I was just too stubborn to take the deal. Everybody is given the option. Anybody who's in a position of leadership or, you know, has founder stock or anything like that, they're all given a, you know, here's your options. Here's how you get out cleanly. Here's how we're going to make it nice for everybody in the public to see. You know, you spend more time with your family, moving on to new things. I've done everything I wanted to do. All this corporate speak. I'm sure all of you can read through this and say, I've heard this before. Well, trust me, on the inside, you're being fired. You're gonna go. They have made the decision that you're no longer welcome in this position you're in. And most people take the deal, whatever the deal is, or they negotiate for a better deal and they take that. Except for a stubborn weirdo like me who says, nope, you're going to have to fire me. That's it. And I'm publicly ready to be fired. So I can't say that Pete was fired, but because I don't know. But my opinion is I'm sure there was some pressure there.
Sure. Marty, I'm sorry, Vera, do you have anything for Marty? Any questions, thoughts, anything like that?
I don't think so. No.
So, Marty, this just kind of comes back to the tweet you had yesterday of, by the way, Pete, it is just business. But when you look at kind of where Halo is as a franchise, you mentioned Pete came in, he took over in 2015, and you look at the games that were released since then, like Halo is a damaged brand at this point. It is not what it was before. You can see the original release dates, but since 2015, Guardians was not received very well. Wars 2 and Infinite, like even Infinite wasn't received very well. I don't like. It's certainly not the quote unquote golden age of Halo right now.
Yeah, and you're making sort of the classic mistake. Bungie is not responsible for any Halo game after Halo Reach. So it's only Destiny is Bungie, and all the Destiny and everything in Marathon and all that stuff. That's Bungie. Microsoft, 343 Guilty Industries. Wait.
Oh, you're right. I'm a dummy.
No, you're not a dummy.
Yeah, now they're called Halo Studios.
And now they're called Halo Studios. Yeah. So there's a whole other part of my book that will deal with the sort of Microsoft side of things. This is why I say it was a mistake not to get Microsoft out of Bungie, because Microsoft is also not, in my opinion, good at understanding how to make entertainment. And I think my experience is I don't think the Halo series post Halo Reach has lived up to what it could be. And then the Bungie era going into Destiny, I think, has suffered also. And I think, to me, it has to do with just this sort of big corporate mentality that takes over, and maybe it was inevitable, but it affected both Bungie and Microsoft Game Studios and 343. But I mean, they're not the only ones. Ubisoft and EA. I mean, it just seems to be, a disease of big corporations.
So what do you think? What do you think happens next in this situation? The transferring, the passing of the torch, if you will, here over at Bungie. Is this new guy Justin Truman? Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah, I know Justin.
And do you think that he'll do a better job of leading the company and helping out Destiny?
He can't, because he's not leading the company. That's a misnomer. That's a mistake to think that. This is not the independent Bungie with an independent president, CEO, and an independent board of directors. That's the company I left. That hasn't existed since Sony bought them, 3 years ago.
He's just someone for Sony to boss around and say, hey, do our bidding for us. Do X, Y, and Z because we say so.
Well, I really hope Sony says he, him to him. Just,
Got to make sure you get those,
respect it.
Get those pronouns right.
Because obviously the beard doesn't tell you he's a dude or anything.
My pronoun is maestro and maestros.
Oh,
right.
Good. Excellent. Well, obviously a lot going on there. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Just everything that's going on here.
I know so many folks at Bungie. I've known so many folks who are no longer at Bungie. I mean, there was, like you said, I've talked about having this golden age. I have a podcast where I end up unearthing guys that used to work with me, from Alex Seropian to Lee Wilson, Jamie Griesmer. We've had a great time talking about the good old days. Lieb, for example, said, Marty, you keep talking about Camelot, because I remember there was a lot of, shifting of seats at the round table and fighting for seats at the round table. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure my memory is of what I would call that, Camelot golden age period is, maybe not 100% accurate, but I think for game development, thank you very much. Yeah, there it is. And there's Ross Scott. My latest one was with Ross, and we talked about Stop Killing Games, which is, pretty cool. But anyway, just talking about what it was like to make games from 1996 through 20. I had my own company, Highwire Games, and sort of went into retirement about 2020, 2021. But there was a real golden age in the 2000s, from like 2000 to 2010. That decade was an amazing era of game development across the board. So many different games, so many different companies, and it just feels like big corporations and big publishers saw the money, saw the possibilities of the money, and started making decisions on how games are being developed starting in the teens that have not been good for the game industry. And I think we're going through a shift. I think we're going to shift back to something better. I have hope for the future that things are going to get better. So
that is the goal, but I mean, so much money is being put into so many games. The giant budgets, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars at this point, going into these games. I go back to the 90s and the early 2000s. I can't even, if you would have said, hey, in a few years, in a decade or so, there's going to be $100 million video games. I'd be like, shut your face. It doesn't even compute to me. But here we are.
Well, when we negotiated with Activision back in 2011, 2010, I believe, it was after Reach, we started negotiating with Activision and Sony and Microsoft. We were negotiating for Destiny. It was a $500 million deal that we got with Activision. And that was unheard of at the time. People couldn't believe it, but that's what it was. But it was, that was sort of the global goal for a 10-year Destiny development. So the Destiny 1 was not a $500 million game, but I mean, when you get to that level, you start talking those numbers. It's insane. It really is, and they're inconceivable for most developers. We just don't know what it means to have games with those kind of budgets, and I don't think, on the whole, games have gotten better because of that much money and the size of those teams. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but as a gamer, that's the way I feel. So,
no, absolutely not. Vera, have games gotten better since they've been throwing money at them?
I don't think I've ever played a game where I've said I think its budget matches the quality. Very rarely, because even games now, right, like Claire Obscure, we don't know exactly what that budget was, but we've estimated it's like $20 to $25 million. That's better than 98% of the products that the AAA industry is putting out on, a fraction of the budget. I mean, we see something like, Grand Theft Auto 6 being rumored to have $1 billion being put into it with the development time and then also marketing, which is absolutely insane. But will that even hit the quality level that we probably expect? Probably not.
Well, yeah, what a mess. I think you can't just throw money at things and it'll grow, which...
Well, you can't throw money at things and expect it to replace creativity.
There you go, Blabs. Or Blabs. There you go, Vera. Yeah, I love that.
Great job, Blabs. Great job.
Yeah.
Bringing a lot, Blabs. Bringing a lot. All right.
And that's why when on the game side, when I say be nice to the goose, and I, preamble to that is like pay attention to the eggs the goose lays. Regular old white eggs, great. Don't be mean to the goose, but you don't care that much about more white eggs. But when you see a golden egg, when this weird team out of nowhere, like, for example, Claire Obscure, like don't make the sequel to Claire Obscure by firing half of the creatives on that team. Like that's the big mistake these business guys make in their boardrooms and their suits, is they somehow think that talent is fungible. Like, oh, well, okay, well, we're going to just need another composer. We'll need a different designer. We'll need a thing, but we'll just fill those slots with new people and, slap on Claire Obscure 2 and it'll be the same thing. It's like, no, it won't. And that's, if the team that makes Expedition 33 says, we want to make something completely different than we made, let them do that, because it's the team and their creativity that we like. Now, they still might fail, but like, geez, don't force them to make a sequel they don't want to make. Now, I'm telling you, we did want to make Halo 2. I mean, and we did want to make Halo 3. And I think as sequels goes, those stand up pretty well. But there's a lot of times when if you look at the team behind these games and projects, and you see that some of the key people have left or they're forced out, then that's the creativity has changed, and you're going to get a different product. So.
Well, that is what was really amazing about Claire Obscure, is because a lot of the developers were ex-Ubisoft. They said that they weren't able to create what they wanted at Ubisoft, and their projects weren't getting greenlit. So they said, okay, bye. And then they made what I personally believe at this point in time is one of the top games of the decade.
Yeah, totally agree. And you hit it on the head right there. It's like they weren't allowed to be the creatives they wanted to be. So they had to go out. And by the way, that was exactly what we said in 2006 after we shipped Halo 2. We were like, well, there's a whole story behind that, but like, we were like, look, you guys at Microsoft don't understand that as creatives, we want to make the next cool thing that we think is really cool to make, and you're not behind us on this. So give us the freedom to do it, or we're just going to go pirate. We had this plan called the Pirate Plan, where a bunch of us were just going to go off and start a new company and make what we wanted to make. So yeah, I more power to the ex Ubisoft people who made Claire Obscure. I think that's
okay.
Great.
Stop, please.
Yep.
Stop.
Why?
Rewind 15 seconds. Go more into that. That's very intriguing to me. This pirate company. What was this? Give me the rundown on this. This is a story I've never heard before.
Well, you're gonna have to buy my book now.
We will promote the fucking book. I promise. Let's go. Let's go. What? Okay. Okay. So, I need to.
I mean, we were actually, believe it or not, and you'll see this in the book. It was in 2002 or 3, I think, is when we first started this. So before Halo 2 came out, well, a year and a half before Halo 2 came out, a group of 7 of us, of course it was 7, had a serious discussion with Robbie Bach, the senior vice president of Microsoft, and basically said, we're going to go pirate. We're going to take our ball and go someplace else because we don't like the deal you're making with us as employees. And he actually said, Marty, you got to understand, and I was sort of the spokesman for the group. We're in his office, and he says, you have to understand that that Microsoft doesn't negotiate with its employees. And I said, okay, I understand. That totally makes sense to me. Why should Microsoft? They don't negotiate with the Word people and the Microsoft Office people and the SQL Server people. So why would they negotiate with this ragtag group of Bungie game developers who are, completely nothing but employees now of Microsoft? And so I saw my guys get up, and we were walking to the door to leave the office, and it was completely reasonable to us that Microsoft would not negotiate. And then Robbie says, Marty, come on, boys. And I'm older than Robbie, so I appreciated him saying boys, but he says, boys, come back. Let's talk. And so we sat down, and I thought, I think Microsoft does negotiate with its employees.
There you go.
I'm no spring chicken, and I wasn't then, and I'd been around the block a few times, and I understood what was happening. So that was the beginning of us. We started working on getting our independence from Microsoft in 2003. And the threat, which was not meant as a threat, it just was the other possibility, was always the pirate plan, which is we go pirate. We take, we get on a little ship and get off the main ship, and we go to a new island and, have a new company. We make what we want to make, and let's see what happens. So that was a plan that we had at Bungie for a solid 4 years before we realized that goal.
Let's stick and go. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, where can everyone buy the book or pre-order?
Well, that's still up in the air, but it's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
And I don't know who's publishing yet, but we'll see.
When that happens,
yes,
you come back on.
I will,
and we'll do a big stream promoting.
Oh, that'd
promoting
be
your book.
fantastic.
All right. So real quick, speaking of Microsoft negotiating with employees, I was gonna hold off on the story, but we're here. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This came to us just a couple days ago. It says, breaking, Microsoft employee and, quote, community members calling themselves the Work Antifada have established a liberated zone, also known as an encampment on the Microsoft campus in Redmond, Washington. I don't know if you saw this, Marty. Did you?
I don't even. I was trying to look. I was trying to make sense out of what they were protesting and what they're looking for.
Well,
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's part of the Islamist propaganda. Sorry, I'm against Islamist propaganda. So
Well, this is them here, and
Yeah.
this is what happened.
Microsoft cut all ties with the entire economy of genocide immediately.
That's right.
Every single Microsoft CEO has reaffirmed their commitment to aiding the Israeli occupation.
So you're saying that they don't negotiate with these people, Marty?
well, I wouldn't negotiate with those people.
Right. Well, they didn't. As plainclothes security guards are just hauling off the trash here. And then they went up and they had a nice little conversation with this guy here. This guy over here with his microphone. The officer came up and...
But we must remain grounded by an understanding of the ongoing and worsening catastrophe in Gaza.
So long and short, they get carted off and they are told to leave as they were, to avoid arrest. The Microsoft Liberated Zone marches off campus as now they are no longer welcome on the Microsoft campus because it is private property after all. So,
Well, that's interesting. That wasn't a security guard. That was Redmond Police that came up to that guy. So Microsoft must have called the Redmond Police, or the security there called Redmond Police. And I would posit that probably most of the people we see walking off there are not Microsoft employees. So I would say, maybe half are. I don't know, but I bet you there's a bunch of ringers in there.
I thought they didn't like masks anymore. to hide identities. I thought that was the idea, was they didn't like masks, but they're saying that they call all out to Microsoft Redmond campus. Here we are, ready to go. So
It reminds me a lot of GDC 2024, where a bunch of the game developers had gotten together and they were like screaming in this public park, and they were trying to protest against like the layoffs and low pay and the pay gap, as they call it. It's very reminiscent of GDC 2024. Everyone complaining that they're not getting their way, and all of these activists, of course, are going to try to tear down entire companies and industries unless their demands are met.
this is without a doubt one of my favorite things I've ever seen in the video game industry. Marty, did you see this last year in GDC 2024?
No, I missed it. I haven't been to GDC in a while. I went to 20 GDCs in a row, I think, and then I stopped. So,
well, they were screaming against Gamergate, the patriarchy, and the industry, and this is what happened in 2024.
I hate these people so much.
I don't get it. How is looking like a fucking lunatic supposed to help your cause?
Don't you? Sometimes you just got to cry it out, Vera. You just got to scream it out.
I guess.
I bet you there are so many really creative people in that crowd that are
Surely.
so creative. Yeah.
Are you tired of all the nonsense? Yeah, you are. Hit the subscribe button right here and join us.